Hi, I'm Max, and this is Elliot. We're going to be discussing the ethics and socioeconomic effects of GMO production on underdeveloped communities such as that in India, specifically using the article Genetically Modified Crops and Food Security by Matt Kaim and Shazad Kozer. Would you like to start off, Elliot?
Sure. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the broader relation between GM crops and food security. And so we define food security as having physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. But unfortunately, this does not exist for many individuals on the planet. And one solution that's been proposed to solve this problem is genetically modified crops, also known as GM crops. And scholars remain undecided currently on whether the continued development of these crops is going to help or harm the overall state of global food security. The most optimistic scenario would be that GM crops have the potential to strengthen food security by increasing crop yield and improving resistance to certain stressors, such as weather or pests. And the resulting improvement in stability could help counteract the pressures that are placed on our food supplies in the modern day by the increasingly adverse effects of climate change and resource scarcity.
Now, there are many benefits that come with having GM crops, specifically as how they address the specific health challenges in different communities. One example is golden rice, which was engineered to contain beta-carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A. Now, what this does is it directly addresses the vitamin A deficiency in the human body. Now, this helps as there is an ongoing public health issue in underdeveloped regions, specifically with vitamin A deficiency. Now, this has led to severe health problems such as blindness and weakened immune systems, targeting specifically young children and pregnant women. So, this example just shows by incorporating just one vital nutrient to a stable crop, crops such as golden rice offer a more scalable, cost-effective solution to reducing micronutrient deficiencies in populations that would have initially lacked access to such diverse diets or supplements.
So although there's plenty of benefits of GM crops, there's also a lot of drawbacks. And the most notable one right now is that many people still remain fearful of these GM crops. And the reason for this is they cite potential risks to food safety and quality, because genetic modification is a much newer and largely more unknown process when compared to other traditional agricultural methods, just because they've been used for such a long time. But what we do know with our current research is that with respect to food safety, these crops that are grown through genetic modification are not inherently more risky than those cultivated through other traditional methods. And in fact, just like golden rice, some crops actually do have more nutrients than traditional ones, and they do this without any side effects.
On that note, authors Kaim and Kozer have both acknowledged that the unequal access to these GMO seeds can widen the gap between those that farmers are resource rich and resource poor. So those who can afford these seeds and accompanying technologies may gain a competitive edge through their higher yields and reduced cost, while the poor farmers struggle as they cannot afford such factors. Now, this stratification risks creating a two-tier agricultural system, which therefore benefits a more disproportionately favoritism towards the wealthier farmers, therefore exacerbating existing inequalities unless measures are taken to ensure more equitable access.
And so an example of this is BT cotton. And this is a version of cotton that's been genetically modified to produce a natural insecticide, so the farmers don't need to use pesticides in addition with it. And right now, this is the only GM crop that's approved for use in India, and it does improve overall crop yields a lot and reduces pesticide expenses. But these seeds also cost around twice as much as regular cotton seeds. And as a result of that, they've been linked to increasing debt rates among rural Indian farmers. Some have actually proposed a connection between an increased suicide rate in India's farmers and the increasing price of these BT cotton seeds. And what the Indian government is doing to combat this is they're allocating significant funding to universities that are conducting research on GM crops with the ultimate long-term goal of lowering prices and thus improving access to GM technology across the board. Now, the privatization of GM technology also gives corporations a significant degree of control over exactly how their products are used. And back around the year 2000, when GM crops were still a very, very new technology, the Monsanto Biotechnology Corporation sued a Canadian farmer by the name of Percy Schmeiser for alleged patent infringement. And they did this because trace amounts of their GM seeds were found on his property, even though he had never bought any of these GM seeds. And this court case got dragged through the legal system for a couple years, but the resulting ruling ultimately held that although Schmeiser did not know Monsanto any usage fee, he had by definition committed patent infringement, even though he never used the seeds intentionally. And so this example of the government sort of punishing an individual for arguably not doing anything in the wrong, this just shows corporations' power over individuals regarding GM technology.
To conclude, GM crops have a great amount of potential to impact the overall global food security problem, as they have a tremendous influence on crop yields, agricultural stability, and overall quality of food production. Now, while the current state of genetic modification in agriculture carries many drawbacks, such as with negative public perception and power imbalances between corporations and individuals, we should be optimistic about the future of agriculture because these issues are being addressed through ongoing research and government action. So hopefully we can look forward to a future where GM crops provide a framework for a thoroughly stable role of agriculture in society.